Good morning everybody and welcome back to another video. Today I thought I'd have a look at the Begleitpanzer 57, or as everybody else has been calling it, the Begleitpanzer. I may accidentally call it the Begleitpanzer at some point during this video, purely because Begleitpanzer 57 does not exactly roll off of the tongue, so those of you who want to call it the original name, you'll have to forgive me. Everybody else, let's crack on. So, this is a Tier 6, battle rating 8.7 light tank, although arguably it's more or less an infantry support fighting vehicle or an infantry fighting vehicle than it is a light tank. So have a look at the stat card first. This tank has a 57mm Bofors L70 Mark I cannon with 96 rounds of ammunition, 6 ATGMs, these are BGM-71B TOWs, so pretty good ATGMs, as well as a 7.62 MG3A1 machine gun, basically a licensed built copy of the MG42 from World War II. The turret rotation speed is one of the letdowns on this tank. It only rotates at 12.8 degrees per second, which for the battle rating and for the tier that this thing sits at is not fantastic. There are heavy tanks that have a higher traverse rate than this for their turrets. 8 degrees of gun depression, which is very, very good, very commendable. 45 degrees of gun elevation. That's astounding. If you're a good enough shot, you can use this thing as an anti-aircraft vehicle. You get 24 rounds in a magazine, and you get 1 magazine loaded and 3 in reserve, so you get 4 clips of 24 rounds each. If you're a good enough shot, you may be able to just hit large air targets with this gun. 200 rounds per minute. Very, very, very fast fire rate on this gun. 18-second reload time. This is of course on my crew level, which is not fantastic, I'll give you that. It could be better, although I think the reload mechanism on this thing is automatic anyway, so it might not actually be affected by crew skill. The armour we'll get into in a minute because it's not great. The armour penetration we'll actually get into in a minute as well when we look at the modifications. This vehicle weighs 28.5 tons with a 531 horsepower engine and can reach speeds of 70 kilometers an hour. This is on roads though. The most I've managed to achieve is 40 kilometers an hour off-road. 35 degree maximum inclination, a repair cost which is actually higher than a Leopard A181. Yeah, try to get your head around that one. And a reward of 400 RP, 400% RP, and 150% Silver Lions. So let's look at the modifications and look at the shell types that we get on this thing. Those of you who hate grinding for powerful shells will be happy to hear that you actually get the best penetration shell first. 140mm of penetration at 100 meters on the armor-piercing ballistic cap shells. This is a 2.5 kilogram shell travelling at 1020 meters per second muzzle velocity. At 2000 meters on a flat angle, you can penetrate 56mm of armour, but at a 30 degree angle it's 62mm at 100 and 25mm at 2000. Then we have the armour piercing high explosive ballistic cap shell. In theory, because this thing has an explosive mass, it will do more damage if it penetrates. The key word of that sentence was if it penetrates, because you only get 70mm of penetration at 10 meters, and this is not a vehicle you want to be engaging at close range with. So if you want to look at more detail there, you can see it there on the screen. And of course you get high explosive, which is only really good for taking out SPAA, but even then tier 6 SPAA may be able to shrug off 10mm of penetration if they get lucky. The TOW, 430mm of penetration at any range on a 90 degree angle, going down to 214mm of penetration at any range at a 30 degree angle. This is a very good ATGM. The only one in the game that I'm aware of that's any better than this is the Raketen Jagdpanzer Zwei's Hot ATGM, which is, I think that's a TOW as well. It's near enough the same thing, but it does slightly better. So bear that in mind. Now, let's look at the armour, or what there is little of it. So, at the front, frontal plate is very flat, 32mm thick. upper frontal plate is 11mm thick, but heavily angled at 77 degrees, but still only meets 33.2mm thick. The turret where the commander sits, up on this higher point, is 25mm thick, and where the gunner sits is 11mm thick. Although trying to hit here is kind of a no-go. As a matter of fact, if you see one of these, don't even aim at the turret, just center of mass, straight down the middle of the tank. You're going to hit the ammo, you're going to hit the crew, you're going to hit God knows what, and you're going to take the thing out. This vehicle can be hull broken, so bear that in mind. 15mm of thickness on the sides of the hull and the turret. And on the rear, 11mm thick, almost dead flat, 15mm thick on the rear of the turret. So let's look at the interior. Oh my god. So, driver sits on the right hand side, engine and transmission is in the front. I have had one opportunity, sorry. I have had one instance where a PHE shell, or was it heat? It wasn't Sabo, but it was one of the other two, pierced the front of the hull, went through the transmission, buried itself in my engine block, and then didn't go any further. I think that may have been heat. If it had been Sabo, it would have just gone straight through and taken out the two crew sat behind the engine. So, ammunition is loaded almost everywhere. We have ATGMs stored on the side of the hull, magazines fed into the gun, around and below the turret ring, more ATGMs here, fuel tank in the floor, another fuel tank in the rear, and I think these are loaders. Yeah, two loaders sat in the rear of the vehicle, with more ammunition stored in the rear. So if you would fire center of mass, you'd go through the engine bay, out the other side, this is with Sabo of course, and you'd have a pretty good chance of hitting the ammunition and detonating it. If you didn't hit this load of ammunition, you'd hit the ammunition stored behind it, and you'd definitely cause some fragmentation, and, well, it's kind of a moot point really when you think about it, because like I said, the thing can be hull broken anyway. So I will go into a little bit more detail about the vehicle in the gameplay, so I'll see you there. So for the gameplay footage, we are on the Mozdok map. Those of you who have been playing the game for a while will remember this as being one of the first maps added for ground forces, with the exception of, it was Kursk and what was the other one? Karelia. I very much believe this tank is a supporting fire vehicle. The gun and the ATGM work very well together. I've taken out T62s, T64s from the side using that gun. Just in the case of the T64, it was as simple as aiming for the lower half of the center of the hull from the side, and I fired a burst of 4 rounds. All four of them went into the carousel, the ammunition carousel, detonated the ammo rack, and blew the tank's turret off. Quite a simple kill. I've had more difficult situations where I've been running laps around a T64 after taking out their barrel with the 57mm autocannon and just pummeling their sides and rear, pummeling them into submission, basically. This is not an easy tank to play, and it most certainly is not a newbie-friendly tank to play. You will have heard me mention in the past that I am not a massive fan of playing tanks that are mobile, hence why I'm not very good at the Leopard. Although, strangely enough, this thing seems to be almost in the perfect middle point. It's not as fast and as mobile as the Leopards, or the KPZs, or the MBTs, but at the same time it's far more mobile than, say, a Chieftain or a T64. And because 9 times out of 10 you end up getting paired with the Germans, obviously, and whoever else, fighting the Russians, because of when this time period is, it's Cold War. Most of the maps you fight on will be fighting the Russians. Due to this, I've realised that you are mobile enough to let the T64s, get into a position before the T64s can arrive, allowing you to take them out from long range with your ATGM and accurate fire from the 57mm. But at the same time, you're able to get there after the Leopards, which means you're not priority target number 1. The Leopards and the KPZs are far more dangerous to the enemy team than you are. But, and this is a big but, This thing, I think, gets more dangerous as time goes on. It's one of those vehicles where the longer you're alive, and the longer you preserve ammunition, both for ATGMs and your autocannon, because you only get 4 reloads, remember, and you only get 6 ATGMs, so you have to use this ammunition sparingly. The longer you survive, the more dangerous and the bigger of a threat you become to the enemy team. If they don't take you out in the first 5 minutes, chances are they won't even consider your being there. They won't even know that you're in the game with them. So if you can get to a position where you can get around the side of them, whether with your ATGM or 57mm autocannon, and pummel the crap out of them, beat them into submission, just... It's like death by 1,000 cuts with this gun. And even when I'm playing my T64, which arguably admittedly I haven't played in a while, I'm going to have to sort that. Even though, you know, it's hard to explain. Even if they don't know you're there, you know, in my T64, these things never even crossed my mind as being a threat, that was an amazing bounce, by the way. Never, ever rely on your armor to bounce anything in this thing. That was incredibly lucky. Once in a lifetime opportunity to see that happen on video. In my T64, I never considered these things a threat, which was my downfall. If you're playing as the Russians or any other team that can fight the Germans, and you're playing at 9.0, and these things are likely to be in the game with you, bear them in mind. Don't forget about them. Don't ignore them. If they get around the side of you, they are a massive threat. So watch your sides and have people cover you at all opportunities you can. Of course, I realise this is a multiplayer online game, so the chances of your team actually covering you are next to 0 unless you're squadded up. But hey, guys, always a good time to start. So, let's get into the gameplay. As you will have seen, I've been taking pot shots at enemy vehicles in the distance using my ATGMs, and now I'm using my very fast reverse rate, almost 35 kilometers an hour there, in reverse. There's one good thing about this tank: it can certainly get itself out of trouble as well as it can get itself into it, as long as you don't get shot at. Cheeky T-54. I didn't even realise that guy was... I thought that guy was a friendly. I saw the shadow, because of course he's in the shade, so I saw the shadow and was gonna just continue driving, but it was only after a double take I realised it was actually an enemy vehicle. What do you know? But you see, that guy never expected to see me up here. He wasn't paying attention to his sights. He was too busy focusing on whatever he was shooting at. I do like this tank. As I said, I'm not very good with vehicles that are fast and mobile, but because this thing is not as fast and as mobile as them, it's a good middle ground for me. I can sort of make it work. Object 906, absolutely no armour on that thing, so one burst finishes them off. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I am 1 subscriber away from 100, so please like, share and subscribe if you enjoyed this content. It really does help out the channel. Or dislike as well, that's fine as well. Let me know what vehicles you'd like to see me play. I have most ground forces vehicles, although air is a bit sparse, but we'll cover that when we get to it. I get a bit tired of playing the same vehicles over and over, so give me some ideas. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers!